Wilson Morales from Black for Me TV talking to director Lauren Stowell regarding the documentary series Celtics City. How are you?
I'm doing well, Wilson. Wilson, thank you for having us.
And I'm reading your whole bio. I'm like, how have not heard of her before? This nine-time winner here, 10 times. I was like, you got a lot of accolades, so
Oh,
congrats on that.
thank
So
you. Very great.
regarding this series, how did this come about for you?
Yeah, I was at ESPN for 16 years, really in the sports storytelling space, human interest, documentaries and features. And yeah, I had a conversation with our executive producer, Connor Shell, Bill Simmons, about an idea that they started in 2020 of telling the definitive history of the Boston Celtics, but also looking at, in those 77, almost 80 years of Celtics history, also looking at American history and Boston history through the lens of the Celtics. So when they approached me about that kind of concept, and I read the initial story treatment, I was absolutely thrilled. I mean, it was, what an opportunity to be able to tell the history of America and the history of the Celtics.
Now, my question to you is obviously, you're no stranger doing sports documentaries, obviously ESPN. How much of a fan of the Celtics were you? Because sometimes you have to know a little bit. You just can't just dive into it. You have to have a little passion of knowing, watching the games, knowing its history, but now you get to dive in more.
Yeah. So I love basketball. I am a college basketball fan. I grew up in Connecticut and went to UConn. So, we were pretty dominant in
Mhm.
college basketball, space. And really, I was a fan of the 90s UConn teams, which included Ray Allen. And so there wasn't as much to root for in the 90s as you'll see in the film in episode 7. The 90s were the crisis years for the Celtics. Really a forgotten period that a lot of Celtics fans have forgotten about. And yeah, when Ray Allen came to the Celtics in 2007 and the big three came together, that just renewed my appreciation of the Celtics. But everyone on our team, our showrunner is a Knicks fan from New York. Our lead producer is, one of our lead producers is from Chicago. He was a Bulls fan. We did have one producer and our lead editor were Celtics fans, but we had to read between 25 to 30 books, Wilson. Honestly, we had to educate ourselves on 77 years of Celtics history, what we became 18 championships that we had to study. And, I can't even, 100 interviews, almost 100 interviews we did, just so many larger than life characters that we had to get to know and understand.
I just recently watched another documentary exploring the whole different topic. And, that journey took about 5 years because you have to compile as much research and get the right people on camera, because obviously, as many, because it's a series, you can't go one person saying they missed on so and so. It's like he's like it's not like a movie or how we watch like anytime there's an award show they do the in memoriam and they miss somebody. Like you had
Yeah.
one job. It's like so when you're
Yeah.
doing a series. You've got to get certain people, and obviously, with as many people you have in your team, and whoever those who are still alive that can talk about, you know, the old days, the golden era. And then obviously, you have to find that footage for those who are not alive. How
Yes.
much of a challenge was that in terms of obviously you work for ESPN, so I don't think there's a shortage of supply in terms of the research and archival footage.
Yeah, and that was what I was used to. Like we obviously had so much when I was with ESPN of, in our archive, but being outside those walls and working with words and pictures and, this in this particular project, we had to really rely on our partnerships. In this series, we had a partnership with the NBA, the Boston Celtics organization, their PR maven, Jeff Twiss. He really helped guide us. He had been there for 43 years when we started this process. He was Red Auerbach's intern in the 1970s. So he was able to really, we sat down as our team started to kind of pour through again all of this history and identifying who's still living, who's, organically connected to the stories and the angles that we were exploring. And I can say our first interview was Bob Cousy, 94 years old in Worcester, Mass. We wanted to make sure that we got Bob Cousy for, we were worried. We didn't know. He's still going. He's 96, still going strong. His mind is still vivid with memories. Satch Sanders, who was drafted in 1960, he's 86 years old now. We were able to take him to Slade's Bar and Grill in Roxbury that Bill Russell used to own. He's still so vibrant. And so what a treat it was to be able to get that. They're the only two remaining members of the dynasty, the 11 and 13 dynasty, Satch and Bob Cousy. So we were able to get them. We had, a great relationship with Jackie McMullen. She was a consulting producer on this. She got us Bird. We were not, Larry Bird's is not, he's an elusive figure in Celtics history as far as speaking in these documentaries. And man, we had, just incredible experience with, seeing Jackie and Larry, sitting across from each other. She conducted that interview. We got Robert Parrish, who, really has not spoken in so many years about his experience as a Celtic. Kevin McHale, Paul Pierce, recounting his stabbing, and just coming back from inches of what being within his life, Kevin Garnett, you can't do this without Kevin, So there are so many milestones I think we had to reach. And the more interviews that we did, Wilson, the more I think people knew that we were really going deep into the history and the story, and we earned their trust.
Mhm. You're no stranger to doing this. So the question is, knowing you have the pieces together, what was more challenging, deciding how you were going to break them apart in the episodes and what to leave out? Because you can't throw it in there as much as you got, like, I'm sure somebody's telling, you've got these vivid stories here and there, but you got to mix it in with footage,
Yeah.
so it's like, how do you balance that? Obviously, when it comes to documentaries, I always say the MVP is the editor, because a
Yeah.
good one is all because, an editor put it together to keep you watching it.
Yes, absolutely. We had incredible video editors on this, and they were creatives and they had the producer brain and experience. And so, yes, we had to, we had obviously episode formats and storyboards for every episode before we, started, and we adjusted. Those were living, breathing documents. We never had some script that we were like, we know the story. We went in with our investigative cap on and we talked to people. And as we talked to people, the story started to change and evolve. It never got too far from what we expected. But I think what was the most challenging was weaving in those iconic basketball moments and the iconic rivalries. We knew that this is a story that goes beyond, reaching a Celtics fan. We wanted this to be a story that anyone could enjoy, any age, whether you like sports or you don't like sports. It was a human story. But we knew that we also had to pay homage to the greatness that the Celtics 18 championships. How can you skip over any of those moments? And so we had to be very selective, especially in some of the finals matchups. We really just honed in on iconic moments like Havlicek stole the ball, and in 84, Gerald Henderson's steal, and then, Bird in 87. And it's like there was always kind of just trying to thematically find those moments that felt organically connected to what the Celtics ethos was and what their tradition is, and honing in on those moments. But it was hard. I'm sure there's going to be some people that think we left some things out. I wish we could have gotten deeper into some of the rivalries. But I also think that this documentary was always supposed to be about more. And, we had to balance that. The thought-provoking conversation starter content that really shows the history of our country and of Boston, and then the great basketball moments. You want to give everyone a little bit of both.
What did you get out of this? Obviously, you've worked on a number of projects over the years. This is another one. What do you get out of this that helps you out skill set wise in a way to
Yeah.
whatever project you may do next?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I mean, what I got out of it personally is it profoundly affected my just understanding and appreciation of the impact of, the Celtics in moving society forward, drafting the first Black player in NBA history in 1950, the first Black starting five, the first Black head coach in North American sports history, and Bill Russell. I'm so proud of that history. I feel so inspired by it. That Red Auerbach, he was the architect of all of this, and that this team came together and they united in a common goal, men from every walk of life throughout history. I have a deep appreciation for that, and I appreciate history. So from that standpoint, I think it's only made me more voracious in my desire to find other stories that we can find these natural intersections. But I do think as a storyteller, it honed and sharpened my skills as how to really stay true to themes, to harken back to themes, to, I mean, telling a complete story across 9 hours was no small feat. And I had an incredible team behind me helping to shape every frame of it. But it was a challenge because I wanted, and we all wanted as a team, someone to start watching episode one and to see a theme that is then going to come back in episode 8 or 9, that really would resonate. And that was challenging because within that, you have to kind of really be mindful in all of the interviews, making sure that you're asking the right questions and getting the sound and the story that feels cohesive. So that I think was something that made me a better storyteller. This has been incredible for the 2 years that I've been, working on this.
I think from what has been shown that the audience have seen, I think you've done a great job. Obviously, there's more to tell. We're going to see a lot of different stories. I'm sure there's some stories that people don't know about. There's some stories that people have seen or read through Wikipedia. Now they get to see people talk about those stories. So like, and obviously, it's like, hey, you left me without having to buy a book because now I can watch this and be like, I'm good. I've seen what they have to say. It's like video. Hey, listen, sometimes, hey, books are still out there, but hey, a series is great. So congrats on this. I'm sure I'll talk to you down the road. I just saw that I just read that they're going to do a biopic on Tiger Woods, and I know you've done something on him before, so maybe they'll bring you on, maybe not, who knows? But congrats
Amazing.
on this one. We'll talk
Thank
down the
you so
road.
much. I appreciate it, Wilson. Thank you so much for having
Take
me.
care.
Take care.